Well, welcome back to Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. Can you all believe we are at the last month of the year 2023? Yes, we are officially at the end of the year. It is the month of December, and we are uh, finalizing our last podcast episodes for the year 2023. I can't believe that we are already here. We are in season 11 of this podcast series. Yes, season 11. We started this podcast in 2020, right at the top of the pandemic. So now we are at the end of this year. We'll be closing out our third full year of podcast episodes and moving into 2024, our fourth year of this podcast. I cannot believe how fast time has flown and all of the episodes that we have done. I am yet getting emails and messages and text messages from people and women, particularly, who have been following this podcast and just sharing how much this podcast has been a blessing in their lives. Excuse me. But anyway, this podcast series this month, we're closing out the month of December with two more of the women from my intentional self-care program. And so I am so excited that last month, the month of November, we had Tamara Brown and Paula Birch Jackson share with us their experience with self-care, intentional self-care. And then this month, we have two more women who will help us close out the year talking about intentional self-care. And today's episode is going to be very, very intriguing because we're going to be talking about the intersection between intentional self-care and grief recovery. And we know we're going into the holiday season. We're in the holiday season, actually, with Thanksgiving already passed and now moving into the Christmas tide and New Year's. Oftentimes, grief and depression and things of that nature are heightened during these months, during the holiday season, because we're missing loved ones, we're missing family members. There's somebody missing at the table, right? Who we're used to being with, we're used to fellowshipping with, we're used to having dinner with, we're used to gift giving and sharing special times of celebration with. And so as we move into this holiday season, I'm very, very cognizant of the fact that everybody is not merry, everybody is not cheery, everybody is not rejoicing in this season. And so my guest today, who is also has been a part of my intentional self-care program, knows something about that. And she's going to be sharing her grief journey and how self-care, intentional self-care, has helped her move through a season of grief in her life. Some grief that she's yet managing even at this moment. And so I want you to stay tuned, stay with us. We'll be right back with our next guest right after this. All right. Well, again, I am so excited to have in the podcast studio with me Cynthia Wheeler, CPA. I'm so excited to have you with me, Cynthia. Let me let our audience know who you are. Cynthia is a well-versed accounting professional with over 25 years of progressive experience. Her career ventures include various positions with Fortune 500 companies, colleges and universities, and nonprofit organizations. Cynthia is passionate about assisting small businesses in setting up and establishing pristine, audible accounting records. She has a penchant for organizing business and finance offices and establishing processes and procedures to streamline workflow. She loves working with visionary business owners by assisting them with the rudimentary tasks involved in accounting, bookkeeping, and financial reporting. She takes their accounting headaches away. I like when she said that. She is the owner of All Things Accounting LLC, a professional accounting and bookkeeping service. Her company provides back office service and support, accounting and bookkeeping services, financial analysis, budget preparation, financial reporting, and if needed, audit planning and assistance. She has served clients in Georgia, the District of Columbia, New York, and California. Her clients attest to her willingness to work diligently and patiently with them. She's willing to roll up her sleeves and get in the trenches to get the job done. Cynthia is a certified public accountant with an undergraduate degree in accounting from Dillard University, where she graduated with honors. In her spare time, I love this. She loves to volunteer, making beaded jewelry, crocheting, reading, and spending quality time with family and dance like no one is watching. I love that. She loves to dance like no one is watching. You can find her beautiful pieces on her website, which we'll share later on her craft website at tweetstouch.net. For additional information, we can reach her, and I'll put your information up there as well. But she can be reached at cwheelercpa@yahoo.com. We'll put that information up there as well, Cynthia, for somebody looking for a CPA. I know we're going to be talking about self-care, but having our money is a part of self-care, right?
True. Most certainly.
Yeah, we're going to have to come back and talk. That'll be our next topic, right?
Okay, we will.
Right.
Definitely.
Get your money right. Okay, so Cynthia, I'm excited to have you on the podcast with me.
Thank you.
I appreciate the way we connected this year and all the things that we've been able to walk through together. And so I want you to just, by way of introduction, I share some things in my introduction of this month's podcast series, and particularly of our session today, about the intersection. And we're going to talk about today the intersection between intentional self-care and grief recovery, or managing our grief. And so I want you to talk to us about and share with our audience what led you into this journey of intentional self-care this year.
Well, thank you, Pastor Tony, and thank you for that introduction. It's different when you hear it out loud about things about yourself.
You didn't realize you was doing all that, did you?
I didn't realize. I didn't realize, but to what you asked, I think I started this journey pre-2020, before COVID happened. That's a benchmark year for me. That's a benchmark for me. And, my mindset was there that, we can be do too much sometimes. And I was like, I don't think that's what life is about. So I started then, and I think leading past 2020, I don't know, when you did your promotion for your the intentional self-care group, what is it? Was it December? January?
Yeah, I put it out in December. Yeah,
I think I saw it on Instagram, and you know how God knows what you need. I said, okay, this sounds great. I'm always about self-help, self-care, doing things intentionally for myself, to help me in my development from the inside out. I signed up for it, or it was something that we had to do. I did that, and I think the information came. So that leads into January. I think our first session may have been January, maybe February.
Our first session was in February, but we were onboarding everybody.
Right. So come the end of January, my mother transitioned, and you were sending out a text, I believe, and it was during that same time that I received it. And during that time, your mind is kind of in one place only. And I saw the text come in and I responded. And I also, to let you know that I'm not in this area in Georgia, that, yeah, I'm still very much interested. I'm going to do this, but just give me 24, 48 hours. I mean, it might have been the day before that we had our services. I'm not sure, but I knew that I didn't want to, I knew that I still wanted to do it, but I knew that I couldn't focus at that time on doing
And
it.
what was interesting was I didn't know that your mother had passed. So
Yeah.
when I sent out the text messages to everybody about the onboarding process, you replied back. It was something like, "I'm out of town."
Mhm.
You said, "I'm preparing for my mother's funeral," or
Yes.
we just had my mother's funeral," or something like that. And I
It
was like,
was
"Oh my God, I'm so sorry," because well, that was 2022, 2023, this year,
right.
January of this
Yes.
year. And I'm still fresh from my
Yeah.
own mother's transition, and my mother-in-law, because my mother transitioned in
Yes.
2021 and my mother-in-law in 2022. So
Right.
immediately I went into oh no mode. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh,
And then I was like, oh no, 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 no. Don't worry about responding to me. This is cool. No, no, no. So go on, go on.
yeah. But I responded because I didn't want to not do it. I wanted to make sure,
Okay.
let me give you heads up. Here's where my mind is. And and I think all of this is going to link together because initially when I didn't know what would have occurred and what has occurred throughout 2023. It was not just January that things
Right, right.
happened. January was benchmark for me, but I needed to do that. And I, in retrospect, and then when we had our first meeting, when we had our first call with the ladies that we introduced me to during that time that we connected during this year, several of them, including yourself, had walked that walk
Mm-hmm.
and of losing some, I think most their mothers.
Yeah,
And
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
all I could say, that was that very first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All I could say that this was just not by happenstance. I was doing it with the intention, oh, this would be a great thing for me to do to focus on self-care. Dr. Tony is always working out and promoting self-care especially among Black women. And I said, this would be great for me to do, starting 2023. Unknown to me that the real connection was there were women that were there that could share their journey as well. In addition to you and I having just gone through it in the last couple of years, and me being in that space, especially in that first meeting, that's when my aha sank
Uh-huh.
in. I said, "This is why I signed up." You know what I'm saying? This
Uh-huh.
is why
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
signed up.
you
I
signed
didn't
up
know.
before your mom passed.
Yes,
And you didn't know that a few weeks later you were
yes.
gonna be walking through
It,
grief with your
right.
mother.
Right, did not know that. And our first meeting was actually actually a good, I don't know if it was turning point for me, but I knew that it was a space that I needed to be in. Whether it was just me thinking that I did it on my own or God knowing what I needed at
Mhm.
that time and for that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what led me, and I want to make sure I'm answering your question. That's what led me to do this because self-care had started because I started thinking differently
Mm.
a couple of years back, and then 2020 just stopped us.
Oh yeah.
I said, don't ever let me forget that the world stopped.
Mhm.
And it also stopped my busyness. The thing where you always got to have something to do, always doing something, always going. Even on a Saturday, I remember during the height of COVID, waking up saying, "Oh, let me get up on a Saturday.
Mhm.
I can't go anywhere because everything's closed."
Right.
Closed. And then it hit me. You're always busy. You're always looking to be busy. You're
Mhm.
always staying busy.
Mhm.
This kind of forced me to, that particular period, forced me to sit still
Mhm.
and started reflecting on, I don't really have to be busy to be happy. And
No.
I need to be more focused on,
Say that again. That's one of the things we talk about in the group. We don't have to be busy to be
no,
happy.
no, we need to crack some things that we were that are so ingrained in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm specifically going to say it as Black women, that's so ingrained in us. The strong Black woman, the busy, got to take care of everything. Well, you know what? No. You know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay in my pajamas all day, or flip the TV channel all day, or whatever. So self-care became a priority because we were prioritizing as mothers, you know, what your children gonna do, what this one gonna do, and just a bunch of stuff, and don't realize that how that impacts our health too. And I'm going, well, I gotta unbusy. The job shouldn't be a priority. The I'm sorry, I'm going to break a lot of things that we've been
Yeah,
ingrained in
yeah,
us.
yeah.
The career shouldn't be a priority. I should really, and I'm going to latch that on to me seeing what my mother had to endure over the last few years.
Okay.
And I started thinking that I don't want to see her go through this, but what's my lesson?
Okay.
My lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Should I continue in the same speed, in the same vein? And I said, what's my lesson? I said, well, you got to start moving. You
Mm-hmm.
got to start taking care of yourself. You got to stop making that beginning of the year doctor's appointment. You know how we do. You got to make all my doctor's appointments, and these days you got to make a doctor's appointment. It's 3 months down the line unless something's really happening with you. So I
Mm-hmm.
make all the doctor's appointments year in, year out. And I go, and they got to give you, you got to go get this. You got to go get your mammogram. You got to go get this, that, and the other. And they give me all the papers to go do all of those things. I walked out the doctor's office and go, thank you for all the papers. I can find papers from years back where I've never followed up on getting my colonoscopy,
Mm-hmm.
my mammogram.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not proud of that. I'm not proud of that. And all of those things, the only thing they could possibly do is that day was draw blood. So I got the blood work, and with the intent, I'm gonna take all my papers and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna call all these places, because you got to call different places for the different procedures.
Right, right.
And I never do it. I was not
Never
was not
followed up. Now, let me say this, because that was one of the things we worked on with you. One of your goals in the program, one of your specific individual goals with the one-on-one coaching that we do,
Mhm.
was for you to work on the fact that, because you shared that with me, with
Mhm.
how you hadn't had your mammogram, right? You
No.
hadn't had your colonoscopy. You hadn't done, you hadn't you. I think you had told me you hadn't gone to the doctor. You hadn't done any of those things. But because of the intentional self-care program,
Yes.
we were able to set some goals
Mhm.
and share with everybody where
And
you are.
we met
I want
them.
everybody to celebrate with
We had all of it. We met all of our, doctor's appointments.
you.
I made the very first one, and then it was, so he gives me all the paperwork, colonoscopy, the mammogram, and I must have almost slept with those papers. And follow up. He wants to see you again. Maybe in a month or two, so I've seen him 3 times this year. I just did my mammogram.
Uh-huh.
The colonoscopy, it's scheduled. I had to reschedule it because of some particulars. I had someone that passed away in and that I knew, and it was going to coincide with that. So I'm going the first week in January. I will be having my colonoscopy. All of my exams that I needed to meet, I've met. I had the Dr. Grennan this last time around. We just sat and talked. That's all we did. I made all of I've not missed an appointment. I have some other things I need to schedule, make sure I get all my dental work done and all of that stuff. But everything else that was scheduled, everything I was supposed to do, I did. And that is going to be what it will be, because I put myself first. Even though I was going back to him, so he made sure I had the what's the little shots that you're supposed to have? Oh, I don't know. It was 2 of them.
Immunizations and all of that.
I did everything that I was supposed to do. And then at first not realizing that I had accomplished all of this. And it's because, I talked about it with you. We set goals, and I said, I'm not going to go back to my meeting and say, yeah, I set those goals, but I didn't do it. And it
So,
helped me.
so the accountability
Yes.
helped you.
Yes.
follow through, right?
Yes.
Because you knew
Help
you
me.
had to come back. And I was going to ask you, how did that
Right. It's like you're gonna ask. You're gonna be
I'll
nice
write it
about it,
down.
but you're gonna ask, and it worked out. But I know we'll get to this. But another thing that after my second appointment, they run your stats and they'll say, oh, this, that, this. I say, I don't want to hear all this. Next time I get back, none of that's going to be true. So within that Monday, I started. This might have been September, August, or September. I started. I got a trainer, a personal trainer. And, I'm a little hard head when it comes to, you telling me what to do. But it is one of, and I'll say this, one of the best things. I've been in the gym this year more than I have in my entire lifetime. I
Wow.
mean,
Because you're being intentional.
I'm being
And see, here's the thing.
intentional.
You're a career woman. So one of the
Mhm.
things we had talked about was your work.
Right.
You were out of you weren't doing work life harmony, right?
No.
And so because of that, you were focused so much on your work,
Hmm.
your business, and doing good, making money,
Hmm.
all of that, but was not taking care of you, not following through
Right.
on what
And that is such a vital part of that you're just not one dimensional.
mm,
And I have worked hard at creating the three-dimensional person. And
mm,
part of that is that I can't sit here and neglect my health. I
mm,
can't sit here and neglect me. Guys as, oh, she's successful, doing things and owning her own businesses and, all of that in the right places, meeting the right people, but you're not taking care of yourself.
mm.
Um, and I don't know, it sounds easier said than done, but, if this reaches anybody, I want to encourage people who are just regular old people, that, I can't keep up with Pastor Tony and all that she does. I'm not running up Stone Mountain.
You don't have to. You don't
But
have to
you can just move.
move
You
your body, whatever
just
that looks like.
move. If it's I do yoga as well. We've done that with you as well. So I love yoga. You have to go up the block and come back, whatever it is. You may not get a trainer, but I want to say specifically to African American women, you have got to move. You have got to, you have got to move something. And it doesn't have to be intense or mimicking somebody that you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
on
yeah. Mm-hmm.
television. And also, I'm gonna break a myth. It don't have to be about the dress size
Uh-huh.
either. If you start moving, some things will just happen organically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do something. "Oh, I want to get down to size 2." And even the doctor will tell you, so, well, some things you're just not going to do. And it's not that way anymore after you reach a certain age.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's not the goal.
No.
The goal was for me. And
And you want non-scale victories.
I was
Everybody
about
wants
to
to
say
hear
that.
those
Here's
non-scale
the
victories.
victory.
Mm-hmm,
Your energy level goes up
mm-hmm,
tremendously.
mm-hmm.
And that's for me. And I remember being intensely just working one week, and I had not gone to the gym, and I felt like a piece of Play-Doh, like lard sitting in a chair, and I'm like, I can't do this. My mind's not right, and I feel weighted. Even if I'm going just 30 minutes on the treadmill or whatever the little things that I do, when the energy level just soars, and it makes a difference, because if you sit still, atrophy will set in. You'll find that you will not be able to move, and you're going to attribute it to, I'm of a certain age. It's not 40, it's not 50, I'm over 60.
Mm-hmm,
So it'll set in, and then you'll be, oh, it's old age. No, it's not.
mm-hmm,
You can move.
mm-hmm.
And is it always 100%? Have I stuck to the regimen the whole time? No, I haven't. Sometimes I've missed, sometimes I've not gone, but I will say this with all of my heart and soul. I will do whatever I have to get to the gym, pay a trainer before I buy a pair of shoes. I mean, be honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, it is a part of the budget now.
yeah,
And I needed someone who could sense who I was. He pushes me, and when I said I'm just gonna do 20 of these, he's like, well, no, no, you're not.
yeah.
You're not, you're not. And
Yeah, they
he'll
push
ask me
you.
about
Yes,
things
Lord. Yeah,
like
they.
knees, how are your knees? Because one of the first things that go, you know, are those joints.
Yeah,
And it's like, he give me special things that I could do that has helped
yeah,
to literally helped, not taking any pills or any of those things. And I'm not knocking it that if that's what people choose to do. It's just that that's a big win for me this year.
yeah.
It will be a lifetime if I have to just sit in a row your boat. I don't know what it is. It's going to be.
Well,
I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be some form of movement. And for me, my little walk that I did, the breast cancer walk again, and
yeah.
for some people they do marathons. It's like you can have that, but I'm not gonna be able to do that. But the
And
fact
you're
that
right. But see, and it's not about doing what other people do. It's about
Mhm,
doing what you need to do for you. And so what? So you started this journey right at the top of the year, right after your mother passed.
mhm.
Right? You had started the process, but then your mom passed, and then I think someone else in your family passed, like an aunt or
I
somebody.
had oh Lord, it was in a 7 month period.
Hmm.
And I don't believe in those things like it comes in three. It came in three.
Hmm.
My mother only living brother, one of my favorite uncle, one of my favorite uncles,
Hmm.
who he was at her services. He was within, I want to say by end of February, March, he
Hmm.
passed away.
Hmm.
And then come July, my aunt, his wife,
Hmm.
passed away as well.
And so
That
we were able to talk about all those things as you were going through those losses. And so my question to you is, how do you think the fact that, because loss is loss, and we don't control when people are going to pass away, but how do you think the your in being involved in a process of intentional self-care, how's that helped you manage or walk through those losses, and particularly the loss of your mother, because there's nothing like losing our mother, right?
I
I know
think,
you lost your father a few years ago,
mhm, mhm,
but there's
with
nothing like losing, and then once both your parents are gone, it's like you feel like an adult orphan, right?
right, you don't know what that's
Mhm.
doesn't. It sounds like Twilight Zone-ish. It
Yeah,
doesn't
they
doesn't
push
it
you into
doesn't it
your own
doesn't feel
mortality.
real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what was helpful, Pastor Tony, is that it centered me. It made me stay focused. I had a space where I knew there was going to be some level of accountability. And even though you can't keep your mind off of it, because
Mhm,
grief
mhm.
is a thing that will show up in 10
Yeah.
seconds. Hello. It
Mhm.
could be a
We
color. It
talked
could
about
be,
that a couple of times. We talked about how grief is sneaky,
will
and
sneak up on you.
and
It
you've
could
had,
be a
yeah,
song.
yeah,
It could
yeah.
be the pictures roll up on my screen like save screen, and then my mother will come up and I go, why are you here? Why are you staring at me? So those things, so it's things like that, and you got to go through the process. But it also, part of that, you know, I don't know if how I can make the connection for me is that it inspired me, if that makes good
Yeah,
sense. It
yeah.
inspired me to say, hey, there's something else I could do differently so that I can take care of my body better, and be intentional about not always grinding,
Mm.
or carrying, and this is not going to be popular, the mantra of a strong Black woman. Well, I'm not that. I'm not
And
that.
remember, we talked about that because you had a moment, you hit a bump one time,
Mhm.
and you were trying to push past it.
Right.
And I in our conversation, I asked you, why are you trying to rush past this grief moment? Why
Right.
don't you just
because you don't want to look it in the eye. And you did tell me that, and I was like, oh no, I got to keep going. Or I feel better. But by, I don't know who here, my sisters may hear this. I don't know. By July, when the third one happened, I literally went into the bed for about a week.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
That was now became too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized at that moment that you kept going.
Mm-hmm.
You took on too much, or you kept going. Guys says, because I didn't have a trigger on Mother's Day. I was triggered on Easter. But
Mm-hmm.
like I say, it could be random.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
weirdest things at the weirdest time. If it's a song, and I'm like, oh my God. Okay. And then it'll bring you back to spaces and places. Um, I also saw my mother suffer, and that motivates me to keep moving, to
Mm-hmm.
move my body, to be more intentional about what I do, what I put in my body, and how I treat it. And every round goes higher. This year was a little bit higher than it has ever been,
Mm-hmm.
because I go, if I'm going to do this, I've signed up to do the intentional self care program. I'm going to do it.
And you did. You've been doing it.
I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be
You embraced
right,
it fully.
to the point that I don't try to, because my children, hear this, they're athletes, so they can outpace me by far. So when I say I'm preparing for the, the breast cancer walk, or the walk next June, this mommy is 3 miles, but that's a big deal for me. That's a big deal for me. So, because that's something I would have never ever done before. So I also am no longer
Yeah, I'm so proud of you.
right. I did not think initially that I would do this. It started out with the doctor's appointments,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
go, you can't stop there. You got to do it all, and I'm not done yet. You can't stop there. You
Mm-hmm.
can't stop there, because I'm gonna make you laugh. I mean, I'm on the treadmill sometimes thinking, well, I must be in that little bit of space. I'm not doing a lot. It's like I am training for the Olympics. You know what? Then I get to go another 5 more minutes on a treadmill, because I say I'm training for the Olympics, and in my head I make up all kinds of stuff.
Whatever it takes to keep you on there.
Whatever it takes, and then sometimes I'm leaving out, right, and I'm like, oh, am I gonna buckle out? You initially kind of like, I was like, I am exhausted, and my trainer said to me, he said, you're gonna sleep well tonight. And he was right. You're gonna sleep well tonight. And I'm like, I can't not do this anymore, and I can't not commit to something, because I would commit to, I'm gonna, New Year's resolutions on the things I'm gonna commit to going, and you never do it. Come past it. But because of this program, I had accountability, and I'd meet with you. It was no judgment. It was a judgment-free zone. Because if I didn't do something, it's not like you say, okay, well, I'm gonna write that down for the next time. And I'm gonna say to the people out there, she's not gonna forget.
But so the whole judgment thing, we don't judge, but we nudge.
Right.
We don't judge, we nudge. But the thing is, and what we do is we look at, and this is the coach in me. So we don't judge. It's not a shaming thing. But when we don't, then we look at, okay, was this a realistic goal, or what got in the way, and how do we remove those obstacles so that you can accomplish. So sometimes when you would come back and say, well, you didn't get something done, then we would talk about, well, what happened? Why didn't it happen? What do you think you could have done differently to make it happen? Or what do you think happened? And then sometimes you'd be like, oh, well, because I didn't say no to this, or I let this get in the way, or whatever. So we just kind of look at what happened around it, and then let's see, was this a realistic goal for you? And if it was, then what got in the way of it? How do we remove those obstacles? What resources and obstacles are there so that we can get around the obstacles and use the resources that we have to accomplish our goals? And that's
Right.
the whole point of the whole coaching. It's not me doing it for you. Like, I mean, I'm not your fitness trainer,
Right.
but you, but I encourage you to do it, get a fitness trainer, right? So now I'm not the one in the gym with you, working out with you, but you get to come back to me and I get to ask you, hey, how's that training going? What are y'all working on? And that kind of thing. So it
I think
works in tandem.
something helpful that you said is that we're all unique, and
Mhm.
and sometimes we get it in our heads that we need to achieve it like Mary did, or
Mhm.
Paula did, or somebody like that. Well, that left me completely, and when that left, that meant that because the gentleman that I'm working with, he's also working with people that's lifting some heavy stuff. They're doing some
Right,
heavy
right,
stuff. He's over in the corner with them. Then
Mhm.
when I come in, here's my little pre-K student. And give it is, and it's never a judgment or anything.
You are so funny, girl.
And how do you feel? How are your knees? And then sometimes he said, when you're done doing this, whatever he gives me to do, I want you to come back there. And that's that zone where you feel like you gotta walk like that, The guys are laser back there, like doing that and stuff like that, like this. And I'm like, he said, I want you to be over here. And I want you to do this or that. I said, I wonder if I'm looking like that. For a minute. Well, man, because I don't have any fancy workout clothes. I got a t-shirt and some little crop pants on. It ain't nothing cute. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to get that cute stuff like that, so I could look like. And he told me to get the gloves. Oh, I was crazy. I was on Amazon. I said, I'm gonna have the gloves like these other people got. So I could just be, doing it. And I mean, it's one of the best things I could have ever, 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 ever done for myself. It will never go away, ever.
Wow.
Ever,
You got
ever,
it now, girl. You got it.
ever.
Wow.
Just the feeling alone, because I didn't get on the scale. I didn't do that. That's coming.
Yeah.
I said, if I operate just like that, then I'm going to be mad when the scale doesn't move.
Right. And so that's why they tell you don't even get on the
Didn't
scale.
do it. I'm not asked. He was more or less concerned about my doctor's report and some of the things I wanted to achieve there. And he was like, he's also very concerned about me doing a little breast cancer walk. I said, don't worry about that. Don't worry. I did it last year out of fun. And I said, I'm going to do it again this year, but they changed the course. I planted it in my head.
Oh, you got this. You got this.
It was a little hill. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And then I went with the two aggressive athletes in my house. And they're like, let's go. They wanted to be in the front. I said, no, I'm back here with the people with the walkers. Back here. I'm going to make it. You guys, and I had to convince them to leave me. And they did. They did. I said, you get there, but about 20 minutes, give me about 45 or something. I'm gonna get there. And we did, they got they can run, they do all that all the time. So had the best fun. This is the best transition. God, I'm saying it, that I've had in a while.
Wow.
It was the best most years I go, I didn't achieve anything but this was a good one. This was good for me. I needed that.
Even in the midst of loss and grief, because you were being intentional, because you had support, you had encouragement, you had accountability, what we call SCA.
Okay.
It helped you to move along
right.
at a nice clip and gave you room to stop and experience your grief when you needed to.
Right.
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 So, but here's the thing about grief is if we have to experience it. You can't run from grief, but it doesn't have to paralyze us.
Right.
And that everybody doesn't move along at the same clip or the same way. And everybody grieves differently. But it doesn't have to destroy our lives if we learn how to walk through it, and we have somebody walking through it with
Right.
us.
I think you have to see some hope. You can't see because your mind will play games with you. It's like, you know, what am I going to do? You know, that you go through a little bit of that. What am I going to do without, my mother, my father? What am I going to do? What do we do? You go through that, but then you got to find a space, or you got to try to find a space where you have hope, where you can latch on. And in this case, unbeknownst to me, quite honestly, doing all of this was a part of me saying, I no longer have to be this way. I don't know how I'm not putting it in words the right way, but I can be intentional about all aspects of me, not just work and just motherhood, or life could really center around me sometimes. So it helped. I think God knew. And because, like I said, that very first meeting, when those, I know you opened up, but I didn't know any of the ladies. They all opened up as well. And that was a moment for me. I don't think I showed it then, but when I left off of that, I was boo-hooing. Because it's like,
we all cried a little bit in that meeting because I think the way it started was, and I didn't even intend to do that, but I think because you had just come back from your mother's funeral and we had the session, and I was letting the ladies know that you had just laid your mom to rest. And then I just asked the question, how many of you all in here can relate, have still have your mothers with you, of your mother's past? I honestly didn't know how many. I didn't know that many of us in the room had lost our mothers. I didn't know that. So that night
it was meant to
the
be.
one, everybody, I've been there. My mom passed this year. My mom passed that year. And then all of a sudden we were able to be a community for each other. Not everybody in there had experienced that, but a good portion of us had.
Right.
And or then we had one woman who had lost her daughter. Yes. And she was able to share. Melody talked about losing Brittany and her mom, and we just, and you're right, for that first session, it kind of was like a good opportunity for all of us to deal with our grief.
Right. And like you said, it wasn't planned.
It wasn't
planned. That was not.
It wasn't scripted, but
yes, it wasn't scripted. You just asked, and I think sometimes Black women, we know how to go through stuff. We know how to go through stuff without looking like we're torn, so it's easy to do that. We are conditioned and trained to just look like we can get, we're looking good, you know what I'm saying? But we are really not letting ourselves be free in the process. That grief is real. Grief will show up any time of day. I could hear a song. I could, when my father passed away, if I saw an older man with a Kangol hat on, I was like, oh my God. Or anything that he did, or anything that he said, or anything that my mother would say, or any songs that she sang. Mother's Day wasn't that as bad. I was in Cabo San Lucas for Mother's Day, but Easter. I'm a church girl. Easter was a trigger. Absent. Whoa, that for the most part. Thanksgiving, I was home. Christmas, we're all getting together, all the siblings for the first time. I think we'll be okay.
And if you're not, it's okay.
Yeah, it's harder when you get around your sisters and brothers, and they might hear this. We're trying to stand flat-footed for each other, and I know that. For each time, this one's not going to fall apart, so the others could see, because then we're all it might be a domino effect. So, so we're all standing flat-footed. I know that's what we're doing. Now they'll hear it. You guys can cry.
You can.
It's okay. It's
It is
okay. It's
okay.
encouraged.
It
It's
is okay
encouraged. It
not
is
to be.
okay. It is okay. This has been an interesting year. It's flown by, but I'm so happy that I've done the things that I intended to do for myself this year, and added the extra layer of like I actually like working out.
And you didn't know that before you came into the room.
I did not know that, but it may not. It's my form. It's my daughter goes off. Do
Well,
what
we're
she
not
does.
remember, we don't compare
Yeah, I
self-care.
can't keep up with her.
It's not about that. We know
Right,
that.
and
No,
right,
it's
and that's the main thing that would stop me in the past. I was like, "Well, I'm not at that level." No,
it's
no, I'm right here, and
and
I'm
you
good.
and where you are now. I mean, I told you all in the group, and I tell people all the time. I post my videos and my workouts, but now I've been doing this working out consistently for about 20 years, maybe
Yeah.
longer, 24, 20, going on 20, excuse me, 25 years. And I was nowhere near. I was like you in the pre-K class. When I first started, I love the way you put that, girl. And I just had a visual of you. I just had this visual of you over here.
He he put he put the advanced kids be back in the corner, and then when he asked me to come in the corner, I feel like I should act like I'm a little, I'm thinking, and
Oh, girl, you're
it's
such a comedian too. Oh
I
my
be
Lord.
trying to act like I'm walking like I got, like a little tension, a little limp or something, that I'm used to doing this. But there ain't nobody paying no attention to me at all.
Oh, well, I used to be in the pre-K class. And even with some things I still am. Like, I like to run, but I'm not a runner, you know. And so yeah, so it's not, I tell you all the time, and it's true. Self-care is not a one size fit all proposition, right?
Mhm,
We do what we need to do, and it's about being in touch with what I need and being intentional about getting, doing, practicing
mhm,
what I need to be refreshed. And that looks different, even at different seasons and junctures of our lives. I tell you all, I mean, what self care looks like for me now is
mhm,
different than what it looked like 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, 3 years ago when my mom passed, or 2.5 years ago now,
mhm,
coming up on 3 years for my mom.
mhm,
And what the things that I did during that season to get me through, like gardening. For me, it was the gardening.
mhm,
Um, the first year of Thanksgiving without her, making those pies,
mhm.
those her sweet potato pies. And I got a funny story about that. So my sister let me get away with the sweet potato pies the first 2 years that mom passed.
Uh-huh.
This year she told me, now look, I'm making the sweet potato pies because she's talking about you don't need to be trying nothing new at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving ain't the time to be trying nothing new. I was like, oh, excuse me. So she wouldn't let me make the pies this year. And it was fine. It's okay. She let me get away with it the first 2 years because
Right,
she knew that was part of my therapy.
right,
Getting through it. But this year I was like, never mind. Go ahead. You got it. And I
right.
ate her. And listen, her pies taste just as better, just as good as mom's, and they certainly taste better than mine. So I was like, it's all
You
good. It's
gotta know
all
your
good.
lane.
Look,
You
I
never
did
know.
what I needed to do those first 2 years to get me through Thanksgiving.
Mhm,
And yeah, but and so those things that we do, grieve and the different things that we do. I remember when I was going through with my mom, the reason I started gardening, like I said, was
mhm.
it was a self-care practice. It was
Okay.
it was part of my grief therapy. The I remember one time I had to my grief therapist said to me, she wanted me to do a picture collage.
Okay.
She wanted me to bring pictures in and introduce my mom to her through the pictures.
Okay.
And so through that, I did this collage I didn't do just bring in pictures, girl. I went and got a whole nice little thing, did the collage of pictures, and went and got it framed and spent money on that. And girl, I walked up in there with that big old thing and showed this picture, and we were doing this on this, and so yeah, but it's different things like that, and so being able to give that, pay it forward, and give some of those techniques and strategies to you all in the program. No matter what, now everybody was dealing with grief, but for you, it was part of your grief journey. Being a part of this group was a part of your grief journey. So you've developed a couple of new habits. You developed the habit of, what were the new habits you developed?
Making sure I followed up on all my appointments and to make them.
Yes.
Not just make them, but go.
Exactly.
In my calendar, I get dinged, I get a notification. And to, I like to call it move something. And to move, just to move.
Move your body. And here's the other thing you went back to.
Mm-hmm.
You went back to your crafts. Don't forget that, Cynthia. That's huge.
You know what? There is also a backstory to that. I'm sitting in my craft room. I tried to hide it, but I've always been undercover doing it. Because I wanted everybody to see me as Cynthia Wheeler CPA. And really and truly, I love to create things. And I always tell my kids, okay, I say I can't, whenever they had something to cut out or something, my husband would do it because he's really neat about, cutting really neat. I said, I can't cut with a straight line with a pair of scissors. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So I'm not really creative. But it started actually before COVID. And I've always known how to crochet. And I got a bin full of yarn over here. But then other things started hitting me. When you start loosening up and allowing yourself to be a three-dimensional person, if that's the right way to put it, you start tapping into the things you start tapping into you.
Yeah.
For the most part.
We saw you tap in this year.
We tapped in.
Yeah, you tapped in, girl, because then you started posting all your jewelry on Facebook,
which was a big deal.
And now let's go on and let them know where they can get your crafts. Look.
There it is. Yes, you can. I do upload a few things. It brings me joy, and that's where it will stay. It will not be get rid. I just like to share it because I got a lot of it. And it's so unusual, this space for me, because my profession is so straightforward. Left brain. Is it left brain? Right brain? Well, the creative side is the other side of the brain, and I'm kind of like, wow, where did this come from? And getting used to that space, and really excited about being in that space, because I now can say I don't just do one thing. Yeah, I don't just work pays for this. My day job.
I'm not just an accountant. I'm not.
I'm not. I mean, I have strong business acumen for any type of business structure that I want to attempt to do. It's just now allowing her to be free to do it. Yeah, because Cynthia wasn't free. and I'll tell you,
now we can't we can't slow you down now.
Oh, you can't.
I get on Facebook and I see your stuff, and I'm like, look at Cynthia, look at her, just doing her thing.
And allowing God to work through me and to have some freedom to do and be. And I want to share with women, especially Black women, or any, just crack the notion that you have to be strong all the time. And that is a trophy, and it's really not. I can't think of any other race that says, well, I'm a strong Indian woman, I'm a strong white woman. And I don't know if you edit this out, but we will always say, because of history, I'm sure, but let's try to change that a little bit and not just carry that weight on our shoulders all the time. It is not an honor to just be a strong Black woman. And I'll probably get, zeros on your podcast for this.
Oh no, not on this podcast. We tear down that model every almost.
You do. It's just,
Oh, we don't.
You can be a three-dimensional woman that has a life, that
Yeah,
has
yeah,
family, that has wife, mother,
yeah.
career,
But you
creative,
don't have to
whatever.
be superwoman, and none of
Right.
us are superwoman. Let people know where they can find you. So those of you that are listening to the podcast on Spotify, or or Anchor or Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening, because those are some of the places where this podcast is being heard. But we're also on YouTube, and I want you to follow us on YouTube. I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, because that helps our analytics and helps this podcast get out there more. So when you subscribe and share this podcast on YouTube, it really does increase the number of people who are able to find us and not have to go so far down in Google search to find this podcast. And I know that this podcast is changing women's lives all over the country, actually all over the world. I had a woman reach out to me in England and was telling me she was watching this podcast and how it is changing her life. And she said, I'm a white woman and I'm listening to this podcast. I'm from England. And she said, it is blessing my life. And so listen, if you can, take a moment right now and just go to Dr. Tony G. Alvarado on YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that others can watch this podcast. And I tell people all the time, all of the episodes are cataloged there on YouTube. Y'all would like to binge watch during the holidays. Y'all want to binge watch Bridgerton and all y'all favorite Netflix shows. Binge watch on this podcast. Go from episode to episode. Find the topics. Excuse me. Find the topics that you know you need, because we've run the gamut on this podcast. I mean, we've talked about fitness, mental health, nutrition. We talked about relationships. We talked about finances, all weight loss, everything. We talked about grief, and several times. There's several every year around this time we have an episode on grief. And so if you go to my podcast from 2020 all the way up, you will find an episode on grief. We got grief therapists, mental health professionals, medical doctors on this podcast. You can binge out on this podcast and get what you need. And not only get what you need, but you can share it. You can share the podcast with others so that they can get what they need. We perish for the lack of knowledge. And we listen, when we know better, we ought to do better. And I always like to say, when we know better, we perish for the lack of knowledge, the Bible says, but we also perish for the lack of action. Mm-hmm. And so when it's not the truth that we know cerebrally that sets us free. It's the truth that we know experientially that sets us free. When we experience it, like Cynthia is experiencing intentional self-care, and it is setting her free, right? And so follow us on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify. Ladies, join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. That's the larger network that we are a part of. But also, I want you to know that applications are open for the Intentional Self-Care Program. And I want to be clear, the Intentional Self-Care Program is different than the network. The network is just a general membership, but the Intentional Self-Care Program is a small group of women that I coach for a full year. We do group coaching as well as individual coaching. They have homework assignments, readings. We work on their specific goals for the year, for their self-care, health, wellness, work-life balance, all those things, work-life harmony. I don't really subscribe to the term balance or the ethic or notion of balance, but harmony is what we are about. And so, listen, if you're interested, you want to meet your goals for 2024, come on into the Intentional Self-Care Program. And I believe that you can be just like Cynthia this time next year, meeting all your goals and looking forward to the next year. Cynthia said, you heard her say, this is the first year that I made New Year's resolutions. And how many of us do it every year in January? And then by March, we've fallen off. And so you heard her say, this is the first year that she's actually met those goals that she set for New Year. And then she didn't even know that she was going to need the type of support that she got as she walked through grief this year as a part of her intentional self-care. this year. So I want you to do that. Email me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com, hello@drtonyalvarado.com, and we will get you the information for the Intentional Self-Care Program. My guest today is Cynthia Wheeler. She is a member of the Self-Care Network, and she is finishing up the Intentional Self-Care Program with me this year. She is the owner and founder of All Things Accounting LLC. She also is into crafts, and her website is
Tweez Touch. That's a play on my nickname.
Oh, that's your nickname. Tweez. TweezTouch.net. If you're listening, or go to YouTube and you'll see it spelled out there, TweezTouch.net. Please go there. We've been talking today about intentional self-care and grief. And you can also follow Cynthia on Facebook as Cynthia Wheeler. You can also follow her on Instagram as CWhee, CEEWHEE, CWhee. Cynthia, thank you again.
Thank you.
Over our normal time. My son says, Mom, a podcast really don't need to be more than 50 or 55 minutes. But you know, when us girls get together. So I'm going to get ready to let you go. I just want you to give one final word of encouragement to our podcast listeners as we sign off.
Invest in yourself. Make yourself a priority. Invest in yourself. Put you first. It's okay.
It's okay. Put you first. Make yourself a priority. And we would love to see you in the Intentional Self-Care Program. All right. That's all the time we have for now. We'll see you in our next episode of the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. See you soon.
All right. Take care.